It's been a few days since I've actually sat down and recorded a video. If you saw the post I made on my community tab earlier this weekend, you would have known that I was on vacation. I went on a little trip, hung out with my nieces. They're all very lovely and pleasant people to spend time with. And while I was out and about, we had ourselves a huge trade that dropped. And I said, I'm not going to make a vlog about this. This is huge. There are 3 teams involved. There are like 12 assets involved too. It would just be way too much to try to go out there and make a video one-shot style in the back of the car about. And so, because it's been a few days, because you already know the trade that we're talking about, you know that Erik Karlsson, franchise defenseman, is now on Pittsburgh. You know that there was a boatload of stuff swapped around between the Pens, the Sharks, and the Montreal Canadiens. Because you already know about all those details, what I wanted to do was go over in this video and ask the question, who won? Because realistically, if I had to answer that myself, I'd say that each of these 3 teams pretty much won, and there are varying degrees of magnitude here. Some teams you could say won more than others, but I don't necessarily think that any of these teams lost. Let's go over the trade details because this is huge. The Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Erik Karlsson from the San Jose Sharks, Rem Pitlick from the Montreal Canadiens, Dylan Hamaliuk from the San Jose Sharks, and a 3rd-round pick from the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks themselves received the 2024 first-round pick from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mikael Granlund from Pittsburgh, Jan Rutta from Pittsburgh, and Mike Hoffman from Montreal. Meanwhile, the Habs, they got themselves a 2nd-round pick from Pittsburgh, Jeff Petry from Pittsburgh, Casey DeSmith from Pittsburgh, and Nathan Légaré from Pittsburgh. This, essentially, is 2 trades in the one, but if you wanted to kind of splice it up, it gets really messy, so we're just going to leave things the way they are. Essentially, the Pittsburgh Penguins went out there and got their guy. Erik Karlsson is a big money player who's a big point getter, and who was the best defenseman in the NHL last season in terms of the production, 101 points, 82 games played. Now, sure, he's going to have salary retained here, but it's not going to be much. Only $1.5 is retained by the San Jose Sharks, so he's going to be making $10 million per season against the Pittsburgh Penguins cap. Why does this help out the Penguins? Well, because Jan Rutta, unfortunately, is not as good as Erik Karlsson, nor is Jeff Petry. Getting out of this Granlund and Petry contract situation in Pittsburgh, pretty good on their end, and they're using the money to upgrade significantly with Erik Karlsson. They also get themselves some prospects, which is nice, you know. Rem Pitlick is a young up-and-comer, and he's going to come into the NHL, probably get himself a role. There's a 3rd-round pick there, too, and then you can't forget Dylan Hamaliuk. I'm not going to pretend like Hamaliuk is going to be the biggest, most baddest acquisition in this trade. He's 22 years old, a big guy who played in the ECHL last season. Rem Pitlick is good enough to play in the NHL, but Pittsburgh getting themselves Karlsson is the win here. Sure, this is an old team. Letang, Crosby, Malkin, Carlsson, all over 30, and they're all on the wrong side of 30 as well. But who really cares? You've got Crosby. You've got Malkin. These guys are still good. I don't blame the Pittsburgh Penguins and Kyle Dubas for going out there and trying to do as much as they can to win the Stanley Cup in 2023, 2024, 25, 26, whenever it is that these guys are going to be still on the team. You're going to screw yourselves over in the long term? Fine. Right now you've got Crosby, and there's an opportunity for you to go out there and win. Erik Karlsson helps you do that, plain and simple. From that perspective, in and of itself, the Penguins have a trade that benefits them. So even though they're retaining salary on Jeff Petry, doesn't matter. They got their guy. This is all they care about. Who cares about the money? Who cares about the prospects? Who cares about the future? It's all about the now, and that is what Kyle Dubas is focusing on. From that perspective, this trade is a win. Meanwhile, San Jose, why is this a trade for y'all? Well, you're getting Mikael Granlund, you're getting Jan Rutta, you're getting Mike Hoffman, and a first from Pittsburgh. That's not a lot, especially when we all thought that Erik Karlsson trade price would be astronomically big. But what you did not count on was the fact that you're only retaining $1.5 million from that Erik Karlsson contract. That's not a lot. We all thought you would be forced to retain a lot more, and that would be the only thing that would allow this trade to go through. Oh, it's going to be contingent on how much San Jose is willing to retain. Well, guess what? you're only retaining like 13%. Meanwhile, Mikael Granlund making $5 million till the end of 2025. Not a bad player, but definitely not a steal in any respect. And you've got Mike Hoffman making $4.5 till the end of this year. Both of these guys can probably, realistically, get 40 to 50 points. If you wanted to trade them again later at the trade deadline, then that's okay. But the biggest win of all is the fact that you didn't handcuff yourselves with the amount of retained salary on that Carlsson contract. This will give you salary cap flexibility heading into the next few seasons if you wanted to go out there and start retooling, rebuilding even further, gathering more bad contracts from other teams to help them out. You wanted to get some extra draft picks. Mike Greer, you could say, did not get as much as he could have for Erik Karlsson, but from how you were able to free yourselves of what this contract meant, that in and of itself is a win, especially in the fashion that Mike Greer was able to get this done. There are no Sharks fans I'm seeing complaining about this trade. Sure, they may be complaining about the return. Oh, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. I thought we could have gotten more. But how you were able to free yourself of that contract, that's a win. Meanwhile, the mediator, how this trade got done, Montreal stepping in there, arguably they had the biggest win of all. Why? Here's why. The Habs got rid of Mike Hoffman. They got rid of Rem Pitlick. Those are two guys on the roster that were going to be taking up spots. Like it or not, they would have opportunities to play on this team, and with more forwards in the pipeline that are young and up and coming and hopefully ready to transition into the NHL, you're going to be giving them those opportunities. And you're also getting some very valuable assets in return. 2025 second round pick from Pittsburgh. Okay, nice. Don't know where it's going to be. Don't care, it's in 2 seasons. You have Jeff Petry coming back, and that's going to be hilarious. We already know that Petry is probably going to be on his way out once again. There was already a whole bunch of talking about how he didn't want to be in Montreal last year, which is why he was traded in the first place. But for Petry, coming onto this team, once we see another trade go down, then okay, we'll evaluate from there. But even if there isn't a trade, right now the Habs are getting another right-handed defenseman that is legitimately NHL caliber. And sure, while Jeff Petry is overpaid, there is salary retained on the contract. He's only making $4.6 million against the Canadiens cap until the end of 2025. So that's not terrible, especially for a guy who last season had 31 points in 61 games played. Half a point a game guy. If the Habs wanted to use this guy, they could, but we'll see if they actually decide to do that. You've got Casey DeSmith coming over, who is admittedly not the best goalie out there. He's 31 years old. Last season, he had a .905 save percentage and a .317 goals against in 38 games played. So a very odd number. Honestly, like, the save percentage is not bad, but the goals against definitely is. It's weird. We'll see what happens with the goalie situation. Jake Allen or Montembeault, one of them on their way out. But also you have yourselves Nathan Légaré coming over. And we talked about this guy a few videos ago in the the top 5 worst prospect pools in the NHL, so the bottom 5 prospect pools. We talked about how Légaré was one of the only prospects in the Pittsburgh system that was actually worth talking about, and even then, he had 19 points in 68 games played. He formerly was a very strong forward in the QMJHL. He's from Montreal, Quebec, so it's nice to see that hometown kid coming over. But essentially, the Habs were able to free up that Mike Hoffman contract. They got rid of a guy in Pitlick who admittedly I liked a lot, but whose presence on the lineup wasn't the most impactful. So they're freeing up those roster spots, and in the process, they're getting a pretty good defenseman in return with salary retained. They're getting a draft pick. They're getting a goalie. They're getting Légaré. This is a great trade from the perspective of the Montreal Canadiens. If I had to rank this trade in terms of who won and the magnitude as to which teams won, I'd say the Montreal Canadiens made out like bandits. They got rid of 2 guys. They got a boatload of stuff in return. I'd say that for Pittsburgh, they ended up winning because they got their guy. It doesn't matter what the money says or what the prospects or the picks or any of the other depth things say. You got Erik Karlsson. That's what you wanted. Crosby wanted Carlsson. Carlsson himself wanted the Penguins. You're going to have to balance out Letang and Carlsson on the minutes eating side of things. It's going to be really interesting seeing how Carlsson meshes with another top right-handed defenseman as a teammate. We all know how that worked out with Brent Burns. It wasn't really all too great. He really blossomed once Burns was away. But San Jose themselves, they get a pretty big dub out of this because they free themselves from that contract and they have a lot of flexibility to extend in this rebuild. those are my thoughts on the trade. I feel like it was a good one for all three of these teams. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who won? Who lost? Why is my assessment wrong? Why is my assessment correct? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.